Today's tutorial is about one of Scarlatti's most beloved sonatas, the D minor K1. I will address how to approach each section with hands separate and hands together, design the dynamics and articulation, and explain how to learn this piece step by step. You can check the description for the link to free sheet music equipped with my fingerings. Welcome to Untune, let's get right into it. Scarlatti used 16th and 8th notes in a large portion of this sonata. Playing the textures with consistent articulation is essential for making it sound fluent, pure, and giving it the Baroque spirit. In fact, I like playing the 16 notes with a touch that is pretty similar to how I play Bach. Very active, putting energy into each key. So my primary focus is not going to be to smoothly connect the notes, rather I will articulate each of them individually. About the 8 notes, I like playing them non-legato, because separating these notes creates the contrast in texture, making a very detailed, direct, yet dramatic character. The time signature is 4/4, and I want to give the listener a clear 4/4 feeling from the beginning. It gives the music the drive. It leads the listener. The way I like to do it here is pretty simple. I emphasize the first and the third beats, but the first beat a little more. The second and the fourth beats remain relatively quiet, so it will sound like 1, 2, 3, 4. The quickest way to learn this piece is to practice it with hands separate, and I highly recommend you to do so. Let's start with the right hand by playing the first 6 bars, a little slower. I like to play the trills very calculatedly, because I believe it adds to the character. It sounds more elegant and delicate. I play it twice as quickly compared to 16th notes, so 4 notes in a half beat. It's critical here to keep your hand and wrist very relaxed. The motion is executed mainly with the forearm, by slightly rotating it left and right, almost like shaking your hand. It is crucial to practice them very slowly, to avoid making them sound sloppy. One additional trick, I'll start the trills softly, as they're on the 4th beat. But I'll increase the dynamic towards the next first beat. It creates a smooth connection and makes it more exciting. I want to draw your attention to the first motif. It is pretty easy to accent the lower A, because we use our strongest finger to play it. Make sure to keep it softer from the very first time you start learning the piece. Let's have a look at the left hand. It starts with precisely the same motif as the right hand. Starting from the second bar, it gets the accompaniment roll. So let's keep it softer and signify the first and third beats. Also, when playing the double notes, I will play the upper ones a little brighter, to make it sound more elegant. Before I put both hands together, let's plan the dynamics. We have a motif that repeats 4 times, starting in the second bar. I find the first motif more ambitious, and therefore I will play it with more sound. After that, each subsequent motif gets harmonically calmer, so naturally I will decrease the dynamics until it resolves in the last one. We have 2 significant sections in the next 3 bars. Each is 1.5 bars long. Here we can implement some colorful dynamics. In the first section, we have a scale where I like to start very soft and gradually increase the dynamics up to the next section. Playing the bottom notes loudly would make this passage sound limping and not accurate. Make sure to focus more on the upper notes. I like to divide the second section into 3 pieces, each repeating the same motif. I will play each one softer, like reflections. Remember how we played the trills in the beginning. Here you can instead decrease the dynamics on the trills, which will make this plan work even smoother. Let's hear the right hand. Crescendo. Softer. Softer. Also here I like to have symmetrical and calculated trills. You could again play them as 30-second notes. About the left hand, I would say that it follows the same dynamic plan, but is softer in comparison to the right hand, thus adding color to the texture. I like the use of the third finger in the first section, because it fits very comfortably between the right hand's fingers, and it gives consistency in the attack. The second section is trickier, because it is challenging to reduce the dynamics with such crowded arpeggios, considering the left hand has to be softer. Also here try to show the upper notes that are on the beat, so you can shape this texture properly. Make sure to spend enough time practicing the left hand. It directly affects the sound of hands together. The final 4 bars of the first part are quite different in comparison to the previous 2 sections. Here I like to bring out the melodic line in the left hand. 3 motifs takes over the lead, and I like to make this exchange a little fun. Let's hear them. First motif, second, the third. To implement some direction to these motifs, I like to start each of them softer and build it up towards the last note. As these motifs are attached to each other, we need to play the upper tone brighter when the left hand plays an octave during this exchange. Let's move on to the right hand. It asks for a little different design. Perhaps we can simply follow the melody by increasing and decreasing the dynamics. It must be very melodic. I like to take a little bit of time right before the trill and stretch the rhythm to illustrate the end feeling. Now let's put them together. I will play it a little slower. And here we have a cadenza with a calming character. I like to reduce the intensity by decreasing the dynamics and the tempo. In these 2 bars, I want to start with a brighter tone in the right hand. From there, I switch the lead to the left and finish with the right hand. That's the main melody I want to bring out. And the rest, simply soft. Let's move on to the second part of the sonata. Very similar start in the first bar, but now it's in a major tonality. I like to start way softer here in comparison to the beginning. I want this part to suggest something else than the first part. Maybe give an answer or reaction. Let's play the first 3 bars with the right hand. I want to give the 4/4 feel in the first bar, just like in the beginning. But after that, phrase it very melodically, considering the direction of the melody. On the left hand, we have again 4 melodic motifs that are creating a dialogue. Let's approach them like in the first part. Start each melody softer and bring it up to the last note with a crescendo. Meanwhile, the next motif must take over the lead with a soft start and do the same again. Let's play it with both hands a little slower. In the following bar, I will use the third finger on every note in the left hand and focus on the upper notes of the right hand, just like in the first part. Also, I will increase the dynamics towards the next bar. Here we have 3 motifs, and I will decrease the dynamics with each of them to welcome the next section. In the last bar, remember to highlight the top voice with the double notes. The following section was my favorite part to play when I was a child. Maybe it still is. On the right hand, we have the same motif repeated in different tonalities, 3 times. They come as waves, changing the mood and developing the story. I like to start this passage very softly and increase the dynamics until the end of it. Focus on the connections between the light and the heavy beat. I use a little bit of help from the wrist to make this point sound very melodic. Besides keeping it very relaxed, I circle the wrist down, up, down, up, down, up. Try not to bring your wrist too high. It is more about coming back to the natural position. The left hand will follow the same dynamic plan. I will also slightly highlight the tones where the right hand's connection points are. And here it comes with both hands. In the next section, right hand's melody is identical to the first part. I will play with similar phrasing, though dynamically more decisive, considering this is the end of the piece. Here the left hand can be challenging because of the jumps, and I will show you how to practice it. The critical point here is to not hang around on the bass notes for too long. Also with the previous and the following notes, always keep in motion. The time management of these jumps affects the result directly. I use a bouncing motion on the bass and land to the following note with the momentum. It would be an advantage to land on it a little before you have to press it. We don't need bouncing with the other notes because they must sound very similar, and bouncing could cause an accent. So just leave the keys as soon as you can, and that's enough. Do practice this movement slowly for some time. Eventually it will get more comfortable, so you can come to the tempo you like. In this section, I will also play every next motif softer, as in the first half. Although this time, I will decrease the dynamics more economically, because I don't want to start very softly in the next section. Let's give it a try. Here we have 2 sections, consisting of 3 motifs. In the first one, I will play each motif more softly, point out the upper D, and still focus in the upper 16 notes on the middle layer. The left hand is the softest and played with the third finger. In the second group, I will play each motif more powerfully instead. Next to that, I will emphasize the upper notes when playing the double notes. Also, remember to keep the left hand softer. Here, despite arriving at the forte dynamic, I will start the middle layer a little softer and play melodically with a crescendo for the following 4 beats. Here we have another cadenza, reminding the end of the first part. I will play with the same attitude, highlight the melodic line, keep the rest softer, and slow down gradually. Regarding pedaling, I prefer not using the right pedal for most of the piece, because I think that drier texture suits the character of this music very well. There are only two sections where I think it can create a nice effect to use it. The first one starts in bar number 8, where we repeat a motif 3 times. Here I like to implement the sustain pedal and change it every beat. I think it adds beautiful color to this texture, especially to the arpeggios in the left hand. Next to that, I will implement the left pedal in the third motif, which is supposed to be the softest one. The following section where I use the pedals starts at bar number 18. Quite a similar situation. We have 3 motifs again. However, here I will use the sustain pedal only in the first 2 motifs, because in the last one I want to keep the clarity and spark in the right hand, and therefore use only the left pedal. There is one other section where you can implement the left pedal. It is in the second part, where we have 2 consecutive groups of motifs. The motifs around the switching point are supposed to be the softest, and this is where I want to use it. And let it go. Now I will put everything together and play the whole piece for you. Let's give it a go. So, you can let me know which sonata you would like to hear in your comment. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, or subscribe, or both. The next tutorial will be about another sonata of Scarlatti, also D minor, K9. Later.